Hello all, welcome back to the Magic and Mastery 100 Days of Magic. Had a little technical hiccup, so I'm hoping you can hear me now. Keep your fingers crossed. Mercury retrograde broadcasts are always exciting. If you're here live, please say something in the chat window and save me from my own rambling on while I wonder if it's actually working at all. In the meantime, 100 Days of Magic. Here in 100 Days of Magic, I'm focusing on all the little tips and tidbits and tricks that you can use to bring more magic to your daily life. Hello, Boris. Oh, great. Now I know it's working. Magic is, in my definition, the ability for our below selves to plug into our above selves and allow that divine light to shine into our world. And it illuminates everything that we do. It illuminates how we manifest things in our lives, even the things that seem outside of ourselves. We recognize everything as a reflection of our own divine experience in the world. And in order to do this, the best way to create the foundations isn't to just go get a book, read the instructions, and hope for the best. It's to actually live the magic a little bit at a time, day by day. And as we create the habits to support our magical practice, we find that naturally all of this becomes the monastery, becomes the spiritual center in which we find our true purpose in bringing down the light and experiencing it here on earth. Hello, Claudia. Hello, Jackie. I'm glad there are folks here. So today we are going to continue what we've been doing all week and looking at the things we have to do in our lives anyway and how we can perceive them as the magical, sacred-filled moments that they are. We've talked about water, we've talked about food, we've talked about breathing, we've talked about movement. Today we're going to talk about sleep, because everyone spends a third of their life sleeping anyway, ish, more or less. And how does that fit into our spiritual practice? Well, one of the favorite things my shamanic teacher, who had married into a Native American tribe, lived on the reservation for a decade, and when she left the reservation with permission of her tribe, she could share some of what she learned during her time there. And it became incorporated into the foundation of all of my other magical studies. One of the things she used to joke about was that, people on the res would look out at the modern white world and say, the only time these white people are spiritual is when they're asleep. Which I think underscores the point of that we spend so much time in our talky, rational minds. We are so out of balance with our bodies and the natural world and all the other people who live on it because our egos are driving the show. It's only when we go to sleep that we finally begin to naturally move out of that ego-dominated place into something beyond. And that's something beyond the space where our psyche delves into the source of imagery, bubbling up from our subconscious, floating around in the collective unconscious, however you want to talk about it. That is the doorway to our deeper spiritual growth. So, in other words, no matter how much time you spend on your spiritual practice, whether you spend hours a day in meditation, or you're journaling, or you are going to yoga and Tai Chi, or not doing any of that at all, every single person plugs into spirit at least once a day, or they go insane. Quite literally. If we don't sleep, we go insane. And it's not just us as humans who sleep and dream. All of the other animals sleep and dream. If you have a dog or a cat and you've seen them laying down snoozing and their little paws going and, the play barks that come out of their mouths. I see this all the time with my dog. She does it every day. They are dreaming as well, which suggests that we all plug into spirit we take a break and we reconnect to source, even if we are not consciously aware of doing it, we do it because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we cannot survive without that connection to spirit. Which is a pretty bold statement given the world that we live in, but argue with me. It's very, very true. If spirit doesn't have that connection, that's kind of the definition of death. So, how do we begin to work with this prime plug-in to spirit that we know we're going to get every day, whether we work with it or not? Well, one is first recognizing that sleeping is our entrance into the temple of sleep. If we think of it as a spiritual practice, it will become more of a spiritual practice for us. We can think of sleep in a couple different phases. We have the beginning of sleep, where we are going down into the experience of sleep. We have the deepest modes of sleep, where few dreams occur. We have the stage of REM sleep, when we're much more likely to have longer and longer stages of us being involved in the spirit realm. And we have that emerging from sleep phase, where we are coming back to our physical bodies and becoming aware of the three-dimensional world again. And each one of these phases has unique possibilities for our spiritual practice. Now, when it comes to going into sleep, that process of relaxing, letting go of our day-to-day concerns, and diving into something deeper, that's a profound place where we have opportunities to do things like ask for dreams. We can teach our subconscious how to retrieve information from us, from the deeper field, so to speak, and give it back to us in dreams. Now, they've even studied this in scientific labs. This is not new to shamanic cultures. It is innate to the human condition. Ask your psyche, hey, I am struggling to figure out how to, everything simple from decorate this room to be inspired to have an idea for my book to where should I work, at this place or that place? How can I solve the issues in this relationship? All of that can be worked through in dreams. If you ask your psyche to help you with this process, and ask the dream keepers to help you with this process. As you fall asleep, you can also learn how to consciously fall asleep. You can be aware of what your mind is doing at all the phases along the way. The whole practice of Yoga Nidra is all about learning how to fall asleep with consciousness all the way down and into the dream world. How amazing is that, to be able to slide down from one state of mind into the other and be aware of everything that happens, how much more awake and lucid you are going to be as you dream. Now, in that first stage of dreaming, when we are nice and deep, most people don't remember their dreams. It's probably possible to remember your dreams. We just are so far down there. We are communing on a totally different level. Our bodies are resetting their chemical nature. We need some time in that very deep, deep sleep state every night to stay healthy. And from there, we move back up and we actually dream in waves. Most people have about 90-minute cycles, but it differs more or less per person, where you have vivid dreams and then you kind of come a little bit back up to consciousness and then you sink back down and have more vivid dreams, and each cycle gets a little bit longer throughout the course of the night. And for those people who, if you're a person who wakes up multiple times all through the night, you may notice that you are basically waking up in between those dream cycles. You're just coming a little too awake and becoming conscious, aware that you are awake before you fall back down into one of those dream states again. You can learn how to surf all of those. This is the especially potent time for learning how to lucid dream, meaning you are aware that you are sleeping. And once you are aware that you're sleeping, you have a lot more conscious control over where you go and what you do. You can interact with the dreams, with the dream spirits. You can interact with the contents of your own psyche. You can even go beyond your own dreaming mind and push the boundaries out. Now, all of these things are possible if you've built up a dream practice. It just takes practice to begin to remember the experiences that you're having. If you've not worked with dreams before, it's really common for us to get stuck in spaces where most of our dreams that we remember are nightmares. And they're nightmares because we are not processing enough of our shadowy stuff as we work through our day-to-day lives. And if you're not processing your stuff in your day-to-day lives, it's going to come up in your dreams to be processed. So sometimes when you begin a dream practice, it takes a month or 2 or 3 months to really start confronting some of those dreams and getting some of the heaviness out before you can begin to explore the fun side and opening doors and bringing in parts of your imagination and getting in touch with it in a way that you've never done before. And the way most people work with this practice in the West is to start a dream journal. The reason we start a dream journal is because it is a truism for most people in Western culture that because we live in this little narrow space, we are very wordy. We are constantly typing and talking and recording and all of these things as we communicate with one another. There is a part of our brain that feels like if it's not written down, it's not real. And so one of the reasons why dream journaling is so fruitful a path for the Western mind is because it's the closest relationship to the way many of us tend to experience the world. And so when we wake up in the morning and we write down fragments of our dreams, what we're teaching our subconscious is, these dreams are important to me. I want to make a record of them. Please help me remember the experience. This is why we write it down. It gives us an anchor point. And even though the first time we try this, if we only remember, I have this vague notion of bunny rabbits, or I have this vague notion of pineapples, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're dreaming. Writing it down provides the anchor so that the next day you might go, oh, it wasn't just pineapples, it was pineapples on a beach. And then the next day it might be pineapples on a beach surrounded by palm trees. And that these kernels of memory get longer and wider and more context the more we practice writing down what we learned, right? And finally, that last stage of sleep, when we are moving up through the layers and back into consciousness, we can learn how to awaken consciously as well. But that moment before we get out of bed is incredibly rich and full of possibility because we are so relaxed already. The doors of consciousness are a little more open than usual. We can use that space for all kinds of creative problem solving, especially helping us to navigate what we're going to do in the coming day. So if you've ever found yourself lazing in the morning, assuming you have the luxury of not being jerked out of bed by a crazy alarm, you can figure out, hey, I have this thing to do. How am I going to approach this situation? If you can get that map in mind, you're already ahead on your day because you have a clear picture of what you're going to do, which makes it so much easier to cut through all the distractions. You just kind of hop into the vision and make it real. So there's many, many, many reasons why our spiritual practice is important, how it can contribute to our lives to help us think more clearly, live with more intention. But even more than that, learning how to dream is the first stage in learning how to work with our spiritual selves. You know, from the Tibetans to the Native Americans to other cultures around the world, dreaming is the closest thing we have to practicing for life after death. It is all forms without substance, moving quickly, and thought shapes how things go. And when you recognize that about dreams, and you begin to understand that once we are out of body, we don't have the benefit of stabilizing physical matter anymore. And where our thoughts are creating the world we experience. And so if your thoughts are of scary, terrifying, negative things all the time, and you've learned no discipline over them by having dreams to practice with every day of your life, after death, it's going to be harder to make the transition into a space where you feel like you have some conscious direction over where you want to take. There's a lot of tumbling around and fumbling because you haven't established that connection between your conscious awareness and your deeper psyche. So dreams often form the central place for the beginning of a psychic and a spiritual practice. Even the word shaman means one who dreams for the society. And so imagine a world where everyone is tuning into their dreams. What kind of people would that make us? It would make us more creative. It would make us more willing to experiment with different kinds of possibilities because we've seen a different way that we might be able to experience life. So consider that as you are putting together ideas about creating your own spiritual practice. You have thinking differently about the water and food that you must consume every day. Thinking more consciously about how you breathe in and out. How you can use it to direct the light in your body. Thinking more consciously about how you move. Understanding that your body is the temple for the light that you are shining into this world. And the fact that you must plug into spirit every day when you sleep. Just the thought that every night when you're going to sleep, you are going off to reunite with your spiritual self. How different would that change your relationship to your sleeping world? All right? So over the last 5 days, I've just given you a taste of what you can do to make your life more magical with stuff that you're already doing anyway and doesn't cost you anything. Everyone can do it if you want to. So over the next couple weeks, we're going to dive more specifically into what makes a way of the witch, so to speak, a practicing magical practitioner engaging with all of the tools that are more traditional to magic. But as we do, I don't want you to forget that all of the candle spells, all of the divination tools, all of the building of altars will always remain secondary to the relationship you have with the basics of things. Water, food, breathing, sleeping, all of this, these are primary. Everything else can be a distraction if you're not working with the other elements of your practice. So I start with this first, and I'll keep reminding you over time to keep embracing the simple things because they can have the biggest impact in our lives. All right? All right. I thank you all for coming today. If you've got any questions, I will answer them now. Let's see. Claudia says, I never wrote in a dream journal, but when I have a problem, I think I will sleep on it, and then most of the time the next morning I have a solution. It literally comes in my sleep, although I'm not really remembering my dreams. And excellent. They're there to help you anyway. Not everything that we've talked about is necessary for everyone. It's why I've given you 5 options and multiple options between each one of them. But for those who do want to start with a dream practice, I mean, you can get to the point where you remember 5 or 6 hours of dreams every night, and trying to write them down in a dream journal would mean that you probably need 2 or 3 hours to write down all of the dreams that you spent dreaming at night. Most of us don't have that kind of luxury of time. So if I had an hour or so with you, we could go over ways to incorporate your dreams in ways that are much more engaged. Like you can make art from your dreams, you can do all kinds of things. And if you found you've already got a working relationship, excellent, you can check that off of your list. Christine says, my cats will not allow me to keep a dream catcher very long. Wow, my dream catchers are on the ceiling. I'd be really impressed if my dog got up there. You have very impressive cats. Okay, well, we are done. We are over time for today. I try to keep it at 15 minutes. We're about 5 minutes over this time. But if you'd like to continue the conversation, share your dreams, feel free to put something in the comment section, or you can just put them in the Crossroads of Magic and Mastery. Remember, this Crossroads of Magic and Mastery is a place where we can all share our process together. Everyone has something to add to this equation called life. Always feel free to bring up questions. Always feel free to respectfully talk with other members of the group. And if you are one who writes, who creates, who draws, who makes products for others to help them on their own magical journeys, please feel free to share them. That's what this space is for. The only thing that's not allowed is like personal consultations 101, but everything else is awesome. So post your classes, post your books, post your blog post, whatever you're working through. If you want to share it, this is a good place to do it. I am Donna Woodwell. I am the organizer of the Crossroads of Magic and Mastery. And I'm also the headmistress of the School of Magic and Mastery, where I hold open a space for everyone who wants to dive deeper into their magical practice. I have been building and building and building for the last 3 years. I have turned all of my courses that I had scattered every place into a comprehensive sequence set of programs. I now have over 130 hours of content, including 4 12-week courses, well, one of them 16, and another set of 4 12-week sessions that are built into my membership program. Monthly celebrations of the new moon and the full moon and the sun moving into ingresses, and seasonal witchy celebrations, also so you can practice learning how to work with altered states of awareness. Office hours so you can answer any question that you want. I really am building a college program for those who want to dive into a deeper study of magic. And it is my privilege to be there for anyone who wants to have a more in-depth, structured, historically rooted, and experiential, organized approach to your learning. And it's super fun, because like super fun people come and we hang out and we talk about all kinds of magical things. So if you've ever wanted to be a part of a coven and didn't know how to find one, well, you can find one with your friends online, who many of which have had some similar circumstances to you. Jackie says, it's amazing. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of A's in there. If you have questions about that, I have many members of who are in this group already. I have actually, my mailing list has over 1,000 students on it who've been with me in various courses in different places. And I love you all. And I want to continue supporting you in all the things that you do. Okay? So I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that you're tuning in. I hope you're getting something out of these little mini magical snippets. And until I see you tomorrow, when we start talking about more formal, organized ways that you can learn the tools of magic, which will be so much fun in our adventure. We get to do some show and tell. It'll be great. So until the next time, I will see you all. And I hope your days are filled with magic and you continue to enjoy this crazy equinox energy that we're pulling in right now. So everyone, take care, and I will see you soon.